All right, let's dig in. Today, we're diving deep into the world of desert roses and orchids.
Sounds exciting.
It is, especially if you're looking to add some visual interest to your plant collection, but maybe you don't want to spend all your time fussing over them.
I hear you. Low maintenance, but still beautiful, right?
Exactly. And that's where desert roses and orchids come in. We've got some awesome sources to guide us. We've got expert advice from YouTube channels like Costa Farms.
Oh, I love Costa Farm.
Yeah, they're great. And Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia. Plus, we found a really comprehensive article that covers a bunch of different gardening themes. So, are you ready to unlock the secrets to growing these amazing plants?
Absolutely. Let's jump right in.
Perfect. Let's start with the desert rose. Justin Hancock from Costa Farms, in one of their videos, breaks it down into 3 super simple tips. And the first one is, music to any busy plant lover's ears. Desert roses store water in their thick trunks.
Yeah, that's one of the things that make them so resilient.
So we don't have to be constantly watering them?
Not at all. You can get away with watering like once a week or two, especially if you live somewhere that gets a decent amount of rainfall.
That is my kind of plant. Low maintenance, but high impact. Justin also mentions that they love basking in the sun. He actually says, quote, "The more sun they get, the more they'll bloom. If you put them in the shade, you probably won't get any blooms at all."
That makes sense. Sunlight equals energy, and energy equals flowers.
So if I want a desert rose that's just covered in flowers, I got to make sure it's getting that sunshine.
Exactly.
Now, what happens when it starts to get a little chilly?
Well, you can bring them inside during the colder months. You can even overwinter them as houseplants.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Just remember, they don't like it too cold. Anything below 50 degrees Fahrenheit is a no-go.
Okay, so adaptable too. I'm already loving these desert roses. Our article classifies them as, surprise, surprise, desert plants. I'm already sensing a theme here. Low maintenance.
You got it. Desert plants are known for their ability to thrive in, well, what we would consider pretty harsh conditions.
How do they do it, though? What's their secret?
Well, they've got some pretty ingenious adaptations, like waxy coatings on their leaves to help conserve water, and sometimes they have smaller leaves, too, to minimize water loss through evaporation.
It's like they're masters of survival. So if
Yeah.
someone's new to plants, or they just want something beautiful without a ton of work, desert roses seem like a great option.
I'd say so. They're a fantastic way to enjoy nature's beauty without, the constant upkeep.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about orchids. Our source from the Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia features an orchid enthusiast named Benton Murphy. And he's got quite a collection.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's actually kind of reassuring to know that even experts find joy in having orchids around,
Yeah.
especially when they're working from home, like Benton.
I can see that. Plants just bring a different kind of energy to a space, don't they?
Totally. And Benton mentions that orchids are the second largest plant family with over 28,000 species.
That's a lot of orchids.
It is. It's a testament to how successfully they've evolved. They can be found in all kinds of habitats, from tropical rainforests to high alpine meadows.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that adaptable.
Right. So let's break down what makes an orchid an orchid. Benton explains that their flowers have 3 sepals and 3 petals, but one of the petals, called the labellum, is modified into what's essentially a landing platform for pollinators.
Ah, so it's like a little welcome mat for the bees and butterflies.
Exactly. And it's often the most visually striking part of the flower, too, with all sorts of intricate patterns and colors to attract those pollinators.
It's incredible how nature has evolved these systems, isn't it?
It really is. But there's something else I found fascinating. Benton talks about something called resupination, where the blossom actually twists 180 degrees as it develops.
Really? Why would it do that?
Well, think about it. That twisting positions the labellum, that landing platform, in the perfect spot for pollinators to, do their thing. It maximizes the chances of pollination.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's all about making sure those pollinators can easily access the flower. It's like they've thought of everything.
Right. So we know what makes an orchid, but there are so many different types. Where do we even begin?
Well, Benton dives into some of the most common orchid genera and their specific care needs, which is super helpful.
That's perfect. Why don't we tag team this for our listener? I'll introduce each genus, and then you can jump in with those essential care details.
Yeah, like a plan.
Okay, so first up we have Phalaenopsis orchids. These are often called moth orchids. I've heard they're super popular, especially for beginners.
Yeah, they're known for being pretty forgiving, especially when it comes to light. They prefer low light environments and like to stay somewhat moist, but not soggy.
Okay, so low light and a bit of moisture. Got it. What about Dendrobium orchids? Aren't those the ones they use in Hawaiian lace?
Those are the ones. And they actually need a bit more light than Phalaenopsis orchids. Ideally, they'd be near a lightly shaded south window. And they like to be kept fairly moist, too.
Okay, so
Yeah.
a bit more demanding in the light department. Anything else?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Some dendrobiums, like deciduous trees, need a dry period in the winter and will actually drop their leaves.
Whoa, really? That's so cool. Like they're taking a little winter break.
Exactly. It's fascinating.
Okay, what about Paphiopedilum orchids? Those are also known as slipper orchids, right?
Yep. They're like the Phalaenopsis orchids in that they prefer low light, but they like their potting mix to be on the drier side. A bark-heavy mix that drains well is key.
Got it. Less water for the slipper orchids. Now, I've got to ask about the Cattleya orchids. Those blooms are just stunning. And I've heard they're fragrant too.
Oh, yeah, they're showstoppers for sure. But they can be a bit more demanding. They need intermediate to highlight, so think an east or west facing window. And unlike some other orchids, they actually like to dry out completely between waterings.
Oh, okay. So we're upping the light and reducing the water for those beauties.
Hmm.
What about Oncidium and Telomia orchids? What's the deal with those?
Those can be tricky. They're both pretty diverse groups, so knowing your specific species is super important. Oncidiums generally prefer bright light, while Tolumnia are miniature orchids that can tolerate drier conditions.
So variety is the spice of life, and that applies to orchid care too. Okay, what about bulbophyllum orchids? I think I read somewhere that they're the largest orchid genus. What makes them special?
Bulbophyllums are all about moisture. They love a warm, humid environment, and if they're mounted, you might need to water them every single day. It really highlights how crucial it is to understand your orchid's specific needs.
Every day. Wow. Okay, last but not least, we've got to talk about Vanda orchids. Those long trailing roots are just so striking.
I know, right? They're so unique. But they do come with a challenge. Vandas are highlight orchids, so they might need a south-facing window or even supplemental lighting, which can make them a bit more challenging for indoor growing.
That's good to know. So we've covered a lot of different types of orchids here, but Benton also mentions native orchids. Specifically, he talks about those found in Virginia.
Oh, that's cool. Local orchids.
I know. He highlights 5 different species that are native to the state, which is a great reminder that orchids aren't just exotic imports. We have them right here in our own backyards.
We do, and he makes a really important point about appreciating them in their natural habitat. Did you know that a whopping 50% of U.S. native orchid species are threatened or endangered?
That's really sad. It's a reminder that we need to be responsible and admire them from afar, no digging them up and taking them home.
Agreed. Leave them be.
All right, I'm ready to move on to some more specific orchid care tips. We've talked about the different types. But what about choosing a healthy plant to begin with? What should our listener look for when they're at the store, ready to pick out their new orchid companion?
Okay, so you're at the store, you're ready to pick out your new orchid. First things first, look for a plant that's in spike.
In spike.
Yeah, it means it has a flower stem, but the buds haven't opened yet. You want to be able to enjoy that whole bloom cycle.
Oh, okay, I get it. So it's like about to burst into bloom. What about the roots and leaves? Anything specific I should be looking at there?
Roots should be firm and green, not mushy or brown. And the leaves, you want them to be free of spots, no signs of any fungal issues. Give them a little feel. They should feel firm, not floppy.
So basically looking for signs of good health. Makes sense. I remember Benton mentioning something about the color of the leaves on Phalaenopsis orchids. Like a really dark green isn't actually a good thing.
Right. Healthy Phalaenopsis leaves, think of them like healthy grass, that vibrant green.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you know those orchids you see sometimes at the grocery store with those like super vibrant colors?
Yeah, they're so pretty.
Well, just be aware that that color is actually dye and it's temporary. So the next time it blooms, you'll probably get the natural white blossoms.
Oh, good to know. I've totally been fooled by that before.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've chosen our healthy orchid. We brought it home. What's next?
This is where a lot of people skip a step. Quarantining. You really need to quarantine your new orchid before you introduce it to your other plants.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't always do that, especially if the plant looks perfectly healthy. Is it really that important?
I learned this the hard way. I brought home a new orchid. It looked perfectly healthy, but it ended up having brown rot.
Oh, no.
I know. And it spread to a couple of my other orchids before I realized what was going on. If I'd quarantined it, I could have prevented that.
Wow, okay. Lesson learned. Quarantine it is. So what about light? This always trips me up. Direct light. Bright indirect light. What does it all mean?
I know, it can be confusing. So direct light is like imagine your plant sitting right on a south-facing windowsill with no curtains. Full sun, no blockage. Bright indirect light means the plant is getting a good amount of light, but it's filtered like maybe through a sheer curtain.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Right.
So how do I know if my house has enough light for an orchid?
Think about your windows. What direction do they face? So south-facing windows are going to be the brightest, followed by east and west, and then north-facing windows are the least bright.
Okay, so I need to like do a little light audit of my house. What about grow lights? Any tips on those?
Benton recommends LED lights or fluorescent tube lights, but he says to avoid incandescent bulbs
Oh, why is that?
because those generate a lot more heat than light, and that heat can be damaging to orchids.
Okay, good to know. He also mentioned something called foot candles, which honestly, I have no idea what that means.
It's basically a way to measure how intense the light is at the leaf surface. Like imagine a light meter, but for plants.
Interesting.
So it helps make sure your orchid is getting the right amount of light for it to grow and bloom properly.
Okay, so it's all about that sweet spot. Not too much light, not too little. What about temperature? I know orchids don't like it cold.
Right, and orchids are kind of categorized by temperature. So you've got warm-growing orchids, intermediate-growing orchids, and cool-growing orchids. Each has its own preference. So you need to know what type you have.
Okay, so that's definitely something I need to figure out. What else is important with temperature?
Okay, so Benton shared this fascinating fact. Orchids actually need a difference in temperature between day and night for them to thrive. Ideally, about a 15-degree swing.
Whoa, wait, really? I had no idea. Why is that?
It's all about mimicking their natural environment. So in their natural habitat, the temperature fluctuates between day and night, and that difference actually helps encourage blooming.
That's incredible. Okay, so I'm definitely gonna have to pay more attention to temperature fluctuations now. Let's talk about watering. This is where I think a lot of people struggle, myself included.
Oh, it can definitely be tricky. And I hate to break it to you, but that whole ice cube trick, total myth, don't do it.
Oh man, I've done that before.
I know a lot of people have. But remember, orchids are tropical plants. They like it warm. And putting ice on their roots, that can actually damage them and like shock the plant.
Okay, no more ice cubes for my orchids. Got it. So, what is the best way to water them?
The key is to focus on how often you water, not just the amount of water you're giving them. And Benton suggests using what he calls the finger test. So stick your finger into the potting mix. If it feels dry, it's time to water.
Okay, that makes sense. That seems easy enough. Anything else?
Yeah, Benton also suggests watering in the morning so that any extra water has a chance to evaporate during the day. Helps prevent root rot.
Oh, good tip. Okay, so we've talked about how often to water, but I remember Benton also mentioning that some orchids need a dry period during the winter months. Why is that?
It's all about mimicking their natural dormant cycle. So that dry period, along with the cooler temperatures, it allows them to conserve energy and kind of get ready for the next growing season. It's a good reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to orchid care.
Okay, I need to pay attention to each individual orchid's needs. Got it. Now, before we move on to repotting, I want to touch on a few other things that I know are important. Fertilizing, humidity, airflow, and potting mix. What are the key things our listeners should know about those?
Let's start with fertilizer. You want to use a balanced fertilizer, low in urea, and dilute it to quarter strength. You can apply it every time you water.
Okay, so consistent fertilizing. Anything else?
Yes. Once a month, flush the potting mix with plain water. That helps to get rid of any excess salts that might build up from the fertilizer.
Oh, okay, so regular fertilizing with a monthly flush. Got it. What about humidity? I know orchids like it humid, but how much humidity is too much humidity?
Well, it depends on the species, as always. But one way to increase humidity is to group your plants together. That'll naturally create a more humid environment.
Oh, that's a good tip.
You can also use a humidifier, or even just having a tray of water near your orchids can help.
Makes sense. Now, what about airflow? Why is that so important?
It's important for preventing fungal issues. You want to make sure your orchids aren't too crowded and that there's some good air circulation around them.
Okay, good to know. And last but not least, potting mix. What's the best option for orchids?
Again, it depends. But terrestrial orchids, they prefer a more moss-based mix, while epiphytic orchids, which are the orchids that grow on trees in their natural habitat, they like a chunkier bark-based mix.
So matching the potting mix to the orchid's natural environment. Makes sense.
Hmm.
And speaking of natural environments, I've got to bring up that amazing fact about orchid seeds needing a symbiotic relationship with fungi to germinate. That just blows my mind.
I know, nature's amazing. All right, let's move on to repotting. When and how should our listener tackle this task?
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually have a few orchids that are probably due for a repotting. So what's the best way to go about it?
Well, repotting is generally recommended every 1 to 2 years, ideally after your orchid has finished blooming.
After it's done blooming.
Got it. It's a good chance to check the roots for any issues and refresh that potting mix, because it does break down over time.
Makes sense. Are there like certain types of pots that are better for orchids?
Benton mentions a few different options: slotted plastic pots, hanging baskets. He even talks about upside down planters.
Upside down planters.
Yeah.
Really?
They all have their pros and cons, so, it's really about finding what works best for you and your orchid.
Okay, I like that flexibility.
Hmm.
Now, what about taking your orchids outdoors during the summer? Is that a good idea?
It can be, but you've got to be careful. You want to transition them gradually, try to mimic their indoor conditions as much as possible. You don't want to shock them with a sudden change in light and temperature.
So, like, slowly introduce them to the great outdoors.
Exactly.
Anything else to keep in mind?
Watch out for overwatering because, if you're getting more rainfall, higher humidity, it can be easy to overwater if you're not careful.
That's a good point. I've definitely been guilty of that before. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about troubleshooting. What are some common problems our listeners might encounter with their orchids, and how can they address them?
Well, one common issue is something called bud blast. It's basically where the flower buds drop prematurely.
Oh, no.
I know. And this is often caused by stress. So, a sudden change in environment can stress out your orchid.
Okay, so stress is a real bloom killer. What about leaf drop? Is that always a bad sign?
It can be concerning, but losing a few of the bottom leaves on a Phalaenopsis orchid, that's often totally normal. As long as the rest of the plant looks healthy, it's probably fine.
So don't panic if you see a leaf or two drop off.
Mm.
Now, Benton's final FAQ in his video, it really caught my eye. He addressed the question, my Phalaenopsis orchid is flowering at the crown. Is this a death bloom? What's the verdict?
So it's a phenomenon that's called a terminal spike. And unfortunately, it does mean that the orchid won't be able to produce any new leaves from that point. And it could eventually decline.
Oh, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But is there anything, like, positive about this situation?
Absolutely. So orchids that have a terminal spike, they often produce what are called keikis.
Keikis. What are those?
Basically, they're baby orchids that grow on the flower stem.
Oh, wow.
And once they develop roots, you can actually separate them and pot them up. So you get like a clone of your original plant.
Oh, that's so cool. So even in decline, there's a hope for new life. I love that. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something that Benton mentioned briefly, which is air purifiers. Do you think they have any impact on orchid care?
That's an interesting thought. Our sources didn't really go into detail on that, but it is something to consider. Air purifiers, they remove dust and pollutants from the air, which could be beneficial for orchids.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But some air purifiers, they can also remove humidity from the air. And that could be a problem for orchids that it's humid.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is something to think about. I guess it would depend on the specific air purifier and how it affects the overall humidity in your home. It's probably worth doing some research on.
It is. There's always more to learn.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered a ton of ground today, from desert roses to orchids.
Yeah.
And hopefully our listener feels a lot more confident about caring for these unique and beautiful plants.
I hope so.
The main takeaway here is to really understand your specific plant. Do your research. Don't be afraid to experiment a little. Observe how your plants respond to different conditions. And most importantly, just enjoy the process.
Exactly. Growing plants should be fun.
It should be. And remember, there are tons of resources available if you want to learn even more. We mentioned Benton Murphy's videos, but there are also online forums, local gardening groups, all sorts of places to find more in-depth information and connect with other plant enthusiasts.
Yep. So get out there and start growing.
Happy gardening, everyone. Until next time.